Hi friends, it's Mila here. So officially, I was supposed to share with you guys today quick beginner tips for New Horizons. But this video kind of have accidentally turned into a really long, thorough beginner's guide on pretty much everything you need to know about New Horizons. So I suggest that you go grab yourself a hot bev, a snack, maybe even a notepad, and let's sit down, pretend like it's 2020, we're besties, and I'm trying to explain to you everything I know about New Horizons. Let's go. So let's start with the very basics. That might be kind of obvious, but you never know. So yeah, when you choose your island name and your character name, make sure that you choose them very well because you are not able to change these at any point later on. If you struggle with coming up with a good island name, there are some like random name generators online that actually can kind of be useful, especially if you're looking for kind of a cute generic name. And that's what I would kind of recommend to choose, especially if you don't really have a specific theme in mind and you're playing first time around. I would kind of choose like a generic name that can go very well with different themes and is not very tied to anything. The reason why I obviously recommend choosing a pretty generic name is that maybe if at some point you decide to change your theme completely or something like that, and let's say your island is called like Christmas Island, you don't end up regretting that later on because maybe you don't want to have Christmas Island forever. Does that make any sense? So yeah, I think like a generic name is always a safe bet, especially if you're not sure if you're gonna have like a specific theme or if you're gonna have that theme forever. And this way you won't feel the urge to maybe like restart your island because you named it something silly or something that was really tied to like a specific theme. So in the beginning of the game, you're also going to be able to choose a map for your island. I'm not gonna go into too much depth in this video on how you should choose this map if you kind of want to like meta game this part of Animal Crossing, because I do have a whole video on how to choose the perfect map for your island. So if you do want to check that out, I will put one of those little card things in the corner of this video so you can check that out if you do want to find out more about the maps in this game. But if you are kind of a casual player and it's not that deep, I would just like go with the map that looks the best. But maybe as a really quick and basic map tip that I would share for a total beginner is that you might want to pay attention to this resident service building. So kind of like the only building that is on the map. You might want to choose a map where that building is not very close to the airport of the island, because yeah, that is like pretty much the only building that you cannot move in this game. And sometimes when you start decorating your island, if you choose a map where the resident service is really close to your airport, like some people don't really like that, especially if you have like big plans for your entrance. But anyways, as I already mentioned, like if you are a casual player, the map is not that important, I think. But I think you already know yourself, right? If you've played anything similar, like if you are a decorator, like hardcore builder, then you might want to check out the map video. Okay, so you start your island adventure. So you will have two villagers, two new best buddies starting this island adventure with you. In the very beginning, if you go and chat with them after the first dialogue, I think, when you have to place down your own tent, if you go and chat with your new villager buddies, you can actually choose where they also live on the island. And most people do want to do this because yeah, they might like kind of locate their tents somewhere random. So one beginning tip for this, especially if you know that you probably want to do a lot of decorating and building at some point in the game, what most people do is place these plots, the tents, whatever you want to call houses. Most people place these at the beach. And the reasoning here is that since it's the beginning of the game and you really probably don't know how you're gonna decorate your island yet, by placing the tents at the beach makes you save maybe a little bit of money, because eventually you won't have to first relocate this building somewhere else and then relocate it again somewhere where you want it to actually be. So yeah, if you kind of want to meta game I'm using that phrase too much. But yeah, like if you are unsure about your island layout and you know at some point you do want to do like heavy decorating, it is usually kind of a good tip to maybe place these plots at the beach in the beginning and then just move them later to their permanent spots. So in total in New Horizons, you're gonna be able to have 10 different villagers living with you on this new island. So it might be nice to know that the first 5 villagers will kind of have these ugly interior designs in their houses. Most of New Horizons villagers have like a kind of nicely decorated house. Everyone will have that kind of like their default design, with an exception of those 5 first villagers. They will kind of live in these like weird DIY recipe houses. You can actually redecorate these if you have the Animal Crossing DLC, but if not, unfortunately, you are not going to be able to change these houses. So it might be something that you wanna consider. Like some people like myself, for example, we just kind of invite some random villagers for these 5 first plots. So, you know, eventually when these villagers leave, at least it was not like your dreamy villager living in this ugly house that you cannot change, right? So that's maybe something that you might want to keep in mind. Also, if you kind of don't really like those 2 starter villagers, and in general, if you do not really like a villager, or you would maybe prefer another villager instead of that one, a good rule of thumb is not to interact with those villagers too much. You can chat with them once, twice, 3 times, but you might want to avoid like gifting them items, chatting with them every day, because if you do want to eventually kind of get rid of them, or you want them to go on a new adventure, aka ask to leave your island, just keep the interactions to a minimum. But we'll talk about villager friendships and villager hunting a little bit later on. So in the very beginning, once you've placed down your tent and started your new island adventure, Tom Nook is gonna come for his money. In the very beginning, you're gonna owe him in the form of Nook miles. Let's talk a little bit about those Nook miles and maybe some little tips in the very beginning that help you accumulate those. Is it like 5,000? I'm not sure how many miles you need in the very beginning. I'm sorry, it's been quite some time since I've restarted an island, so I don't remember exactly. But here is some very easy tips on how to get those 5,000 miles together. So you have 2 different forms of Nook Mile tasks. There is the daily ones on top of your screen when you go and check your Nook Mile program, and then there are the more permanent achievements that are like these blue little cards. So I think the very easiest thing is just to play the game, right? Like these very first Nook Mile achievements or ways to accumulate points are super easy. I think most of them are catching a bug, catching a fish, catching 10 fish, catching 10 bugs. All of these things will kind of unlock this Nook Mile achievement that gives you points. You also have these kind of rotating Nook Mile tasks on the top of your Nook Mile screen. These are usually really easy tasks that don't give you that many points, but they're really easy to complete and you can complete as many as you can. So focusing on some of those will give you a lot of points. But then there are these more like achievement cards that usually give you a bit more Nook Miles, and you can only do them pretty much once, or there might be like different levels to them. For example, that catching bugs Nook Mile achievement, which maybe first is like 10, the next one is 100,000, whatever. You get the point. But in the very beginning, my favorite, like super easy and quick ways to get some Nook miles is taking a photo, creating my first custom design, crafting some items, sell shells that you find on the beach, sell some weeds. Like I love de-weeding my island in the very beginning because I think you get like achievements when you sell weeds, and I think you can go up to at least like 100 weeds really easily. Also like throwing items outside and inside of your tent give you some like decorating Nook Mile achievements. So those are super easy. Planting flowers, planting trees. Those are like really easy ways to like quickly get Nook Miles. Also, obviously, one thing that you can really focus on is those 5 rotating daily tasks on the top of the Nook Mile program. Obviously, you can do these ones over and over again and grind some Nook Miles this way. Usually these are super easy. And yeah, you can do them as many times as you possibly can. So that's obviously one way to grind those Nook Miles in the very beginning. I would also maybe keep like some very basic materials in my pockets and a crafting station nearby, because I think there is a lot of tasks in these daily Nook Mile tasks that are like customize an item, craft an item. So I would choose like a really easy crafting recipe, like for example something that only requires weeds, and make sure that I have all the materials that I can craft that item like many times. So every time that daily task pops up, you can just quickly craft that item and get those points. And also one nice to know thing is, for example, for the customize an item task, if you customize your tools, it only costs 1 customization kit, is it called? Also, when you customize your tool and when you change the color of it, it gives back the durability for that item, so it kind of resets the damage that you have done using it. So this way you can kind of have the same shovel or hammer, or is it an axe, like forever and ever. So that's also kind of one nice to know thing. Don't underestimate customizing your tools. One thing that I think I'm gonna mention, even though it's probably not something that I would super recommend, especially for your first playthrough, but you can kind of cheat this system eventually once your airport is open and your friends can come over. I think most people, when they speed run, they have a friend come over and drop off the golden tools, or they fly to a so-called treasure island to get those golden tools, because I think unlocking the golden tools in the very beginning give you a lot of Nook Miles. But yeah, I'm gonna just mention this here, but it's not like my favorite tip, because especially for first time around, I wouldn't really recommend doing that. But maybe for a future speed run, if you want to kind of know this handy tip on how to get like Nook Miles super fast, you can use this golden tool trick. So I think that's enough for Nook Miles for now. Let's talk about my best bell tips, because eventually, obviously, you're gonna want to make as much money as you can, because you're gonna have a house loan, you're gonna want to buy all kinds of new furniture and move your villager houses and whatever else is there. So in the very early game, I think your best ways to get money is either finding a money rock around your island. I think on your island, you're gonna have maximum of 6 rocks, and one of these rocks will every day be the so-called money rock. It's gonna change. It's not gonna always be the same rock, but once a day, you're gonna have a chance to find a money rock that is gonna farm you money instead of clay iron. Also, if you run around your island and you see this kind of glowing spot on the ground, if you dig up that glowing spot, you're gonna find a bag of bells, and you might notice that that hole is kind of glowing. If you plant the bell bag in that hole, it's gonna create a money tree, and you can dig up this sapling and relocate it anywhere on your island. But after I think 3 days, it's gonna grow you some money. Usually it's gonna grow you whatever you put in there times 3. To be honest, I know there is like some sort of method on how this works exactly, but most of the time, what I prefer doing is either putting 1,000 bells in the hole or 10,000 bells. Anything above 10,000 is a bit of a gamble. It's a very slight chance that it will spawn like more money than that. But I think 10,000 is like a very good, once you can afford it, obviously, it's a really good amount to put in that tree because yeah, in 3 days time, you're gonna get 30,000 bells. So this is a nice tip in the very beginning of the game. But my favorite beginning game money tip is the foreign fruit trick. So every island will have a native fruit and a native flower. This is the fruit that you're gonna find on your island on the first day. So let's say that it's pears or something. When you grow any other fruit around your island than pears, it's gonna make you like 4 times the money. So I think in general, I might be a little bit mistaken. I hope I'm not. But let's say like usually when you sell your pears, Timmy and Tommy will buy them for 100 bells. But any native fruit I think sells like 4 times that or 5 times that. So usually this foreign fruit trick is the best one. You can pretty easily create a cute little orchard with like, let's say apples, oranges, and cherries, and just farm those every 3 days and sell them to Timmy and Tommy. You will make a nice chunk of money this way. If you do wonder how to get these foreign fruits, in the very beginning of the game, I think you will get a letter from mom and she will send you some foreign fruits. So in the very beginning, this is so important. Do not eat those fruit. Keep them and plant them, because that's like one of the only ways to get a different fruit, especially if you're not playing online. Another one is that eventually when you unlock these NOOK MILE tickets, you can fly to a mystery island from your airport, so-called NOOK MILE Islands or whatever it's called in the game, mystery islands, and you have a chance of finding an island that has like your quote-unquote sister fruit. So yeah, it's just like a foreign fruit to your island. You can farm all those apples or whatever, let's say, and bring them back to your island and plant them there. And yeah, you can make this like lucrative money orchard that way. I have heard that your villagers might give you randomly one of these other fruits that don't grow on your island, but I'm not really sure about that. I always have played online, so I've always gotten the missing fruit from friends or treasure islands or whatever. So I cannot really say sure, but yeah, especially if you play offline, I think you can at least get 3 different fruits aside from coconuts. Forget about coconuts. This method, by the way, doesn't include coconuts. Coconuts always give you 200 bells. But yeah, all these like apples, pears, whatever. That's the fruit that I'm talking about here. Oh my goodness, I hope that made some sense. I feel like I've been talking about that for too long. So I still have 2 more money making tips that are pretty good in the beginning. But once you unlock diving, that is probably one of the best ways to make money in the game. There is like such good sea creatures that sell for a lot of bells. So diving is definitely a really good way of making money in the beginning of the game. And eventually, actually, once you unlock a museum on your island, once you start getting duplicate fossils, you can actually sell those duplicate fossils for a pretty nice amount of bells as well. But just keep in mind that there's actually maybe some better ways of using these fossils, but I will talk about that more during villager friendships. So if you wanna obviously go diving, you need a swimming suit. You can buy this in Nook's Cranny, or you can also order it from the ADC, whatever it was called, the machine in resident services. You will find it in one of the tabs, maybe Nook Shopping. So yeah, you need that in order to be able to dive. So these are kind of nice to know money-making tips in the very beginning, but actually the very best way to make at least a lot of money in Animal Crossing New Horizons is by selling and buying and selling turnips. So you will have Daisy May, the turnip seller, appear on your island every Sunday. I think she comes before noon time, so you kind of have to play in the morning every Sunday. So every week her turnip price will vary. Usually a good rule of thumb is probably if it's under 95 bells is a pretty good deal, but the cheaper, the lower to that price that you can get is usually the best. So you can invest in the turnip market, and yeah, the idea here is that you're gonna go to your Nook's Cranny every day and ask Timmy and Tommy on how much they are buying turnips for every day. I think this price changes 2 times a day, and you're gonna just have to wish for a really good price. There are some like turnip calculators online that you can check if you really want to meta game this, but obviously the best case scenario here is that, let's say you bought your turnips from Daisy May for 90 bells, and one day Timmy and Tommy are gonna buy them for 200 bells. So you're gonna make a really nice amount of money there, and sometimes Timmy and Tommy might even buy them for 500, 900, whatever bells. So this is like the best way of making a lot of money. Obviously you need to buy quite a lot of turnips, and it's really not guaranteed. It's a bit of a gamble every week, but essentially, at least as a built-in thing in the game, the turnip market is your best bet on becoming a billionaire. So before we move into other tips, I want to kind of explain a few phrases that I'm going to be using in this video, because if you are a beginner, these terms might be new to you, and yeah, I just want to kind of explain what they mean so there is no confusions. But you will run into these terms a lot when you play Animal Crossing. One of them is time traveling, which basically means that you're gonna change the time on your Switch in order to go to a different time of day or to a different date completely. And this method is used in Animal Crossing for many reasons: to kick out villagers, or I don't know, finding a better turnip price, or finding some creatures that only spawn in the mornings or evenings, or whatever reason. Me, I personally kind of usually try avoid time traveling a lot. Sometimes it just kind of takes the fun out of everything, and I don't know, I just prefer to have a bit of a challenge. You know, like if I forget about someone's birthday, well, I might time travel because of that. But yeah, I just try to avoid time traveling excessively because yeah, it's not always like super fun. But yeah, each to their own. And me, I do it sometimes to kick out villagers, and sometimes I just don't have the luxury of playing Animal Crossing every day as it quote unquote was meant to be played. So sometimes I do time travel on an occasion, but you want to know that if you time travel like long periods of time, flowers might take over your island, weeds are gonna take over your island, so it's gonna do a bit of a damage that you might want to know before you start time traveling like years and years in a row, because yeah, undoing all that damage is gonna be such a headache, especially the flower apocalypse. Right? In this thing, I wanted to mention that time traveling spoils your turnips. That might be something that you might want to consider as well. So if you bought turnips on a Sunday, do not time travel. Even 1 minute or 10 minutes, changing just the time and not the date will spoil your turnips. So just a heads up. Another phrase that is used very often is called autofilling. That just technically means that when you have an open villager plot, you did not go to a mystery island and invite a villager yourself. This plot just automatically got sold. This usually happens day after you place down an empty plot, so this is mainly relevant at that point of the game when Tom Nook asks you to sell some land and you start placing down these empty plots. So in the very beginning, when you have those 3 first plots where you have to craft furniture for, this doesn't really apply because actually those plots will autofill if you turn in all those crafting items that is needed for that plot. But you can actually decide the villagers that move into those plots if you do go to mystery islands with these Nook Mile tickets before before you turn in all those crafting items. I hope that makes sense. So this brings me to the third phrase, which is called villager hunting. So villager hunting in Animal Crossing or Dreamy hunting refers to this process of flying to these mystery islands with those Nook Mile tickets. When you have an open plot on your island, you are gonna be able to find a random villager on each of these mystery islands. And yes, if you go to one island and you don't like that villager that is there, if you fly back and fly to a new island, it should have another villager there. And this is called villager hunting. Like when you fly to an island and fly to the next one and the next one and the next one and keep going and going, kind of in the search of finding cute villagers. This is villager hunting. Does that make any sense? I hope so. Okay, I think we derailed here for a little bit. Let's go back to the very beginning of the game and some like basic things that might be nice to know. So if you shake trees around your island, you have a chance of that tree randomly dropping a furniture item, which is kind of nice, especially in the beginning when you haven't built a shop on your island just yet. And I think, is it Timmy who is selling stuff in the resident service tent? He has only like 2 or 3 different items every day. So yeah, in order to find like cool new items, you can shake the trees around your island. You can also get bells by shaking trees, so it's kind of fun in the beginning of the game. I think in total you are gonna be able to find either 2 or 3 items every day, so keep shaking those trees. You might just want to keep a net with you because there is also a chance of shaking a wasp's nest out of the tree, so you might want to keep a net with you to just catch that wasp instead of letting it sting you. Actually, wasps sell for a really good money in the game as well. I think they cost like 2,500 bells, or yeah, like they sell for 2,500 bells a pop. So keep catching those wasps for good wasp money. Also, you do want to check this box that you have in the resident service tent / resident service building eventually, because you can find free stuff in there too, and you can find free resources in there as well. So once Timmy and Tommy, for example, ask you to build a shop, this might be a really handy thing to check out, especially when you need those iron nuggets, which is usually a struggle in the beginning. Also for this, if you wanna kind of maximize on iron nuggets, because I know that can be a bit of a struggle once you start the shop building quest, I think one of your villagers on the island is gonna give you some iron nuggets, so make sure that you chat with them or you talk to them when they approach you. Another way of getting iron nuggets, aside from obviously farming those rocks on your island, is to actually fly to a Nook Mile island and go and farm some nuggets on a mystery island, because that way you can also get like more rocks. Another way is obviously if you have a friend who can help you out, just have them fly over to your island or go to their island to grab some iron nuggets. But especially if you're playing alone, do not forget about mystery islands, because you can go and get some iron nuggets that way. So let's talk about these Nook Mile tickets, right? So you will get 1 Nook Mile ticket for free from Tom Nook once you, I think, unlock the airport. But you can also go to this machine in the resident service tent to unlock more of these or redeem more of those. One of them cost 2,000 Nook Miles, so you might have to grind for a lot of these Nook Mile points in order to get those Nook Mile tickets. Other really good Nook Mile investments that I have, when you go through the catalog in this machine, you might want to unlock obviously the bigger bag upgrade here. That is probably the #1 priority here. The other one might be the better tools recipe, especially if you don't want your flimsy tools to break all the time, even though this is a really good way to get like some of the achievements. So do not like overlook on that. I think like having a flimsy shovel is a pretty good thing to do, because I think you need around 100 shovels to be broken in order to unlock 1 achievement. So you might not always want to have like a really good tool, but in general, you know, it might get a little bit frustrating having your tools break all the time. And one thing that is really, really handy is the tool ring. This just makes it more convenient swapping your tools. So highly recommend those ones from the 80, I think it's ABD. I don't know what it's called. So occasionally you will see these like balloons fly over you and over your island. You do want to shoot these balloons down with a slingshot because you can find money, resources, those iron nuggets, right? And even DIY recipes in these balloons. So make sure you shoot down the balloons. Okay, let's talk about bug catching and fishing. So in Animal Crossing, you will have this like Critterpedia to complete. The easiest way to keep track of this is always to donate the first of any new bug, fish, whatever, straight to the museum. You will know if the bug that you catch or the fish that you catch is a new one or new to you, because your character will say yes in the beginning of this interaction once you, let's say, caught that bug. So yeah, a good rule of thumb in this one is to always donate the first whatever to Blathers in the museum, because otherwise it does get a little bit difficult to keep track of these. If you open your Critterpedia and hover over whatever bug, fish, sea creature, you will actually see a little icon next to the name of that creature if you have donated it to the museum, but it's way easier to just donate the first one always to Blathers. In the beginning, it might be a little bit annoying because you can actually only donate these items in certain intervals. But one easy tip is just to kind of pile up those bugs in front of Blathers' tent or in some corner on your island, so you remember once you can start donating stuff freely, so not these quests where you have to donate 5 or 15 in the beginning. So yeah, you can stack up those soon to be donated bugs in a corner on your island, so once you can start donating stuff freely, you can just go to that pile, grab all those bugs and give them to Blathers. Some nice to know things that I want to also mention. So your ultimate goal for the beginning of the game is to reach a 3-star island. Something that you might want to know is that you don't actually need a museum to reach 3 stars, if you didn't know this. But I mean, in general, you're gonna miss out on a lot of nice content in the game, so you definitely do want to have a museum. But in case you've chosen for aesthetic purposes to keep Blathers in his tent, you actually can reach 3 stars and kind of complete the main storyline in the game without having a museum. Another thing is that you don't even need 10 villagers to reach 3 stars either. I've done it many times with only 9 villagers. But one more thing that as a new player that you might want to know is that once you reach a stage in the main storyline where you build a campsite, and you will have a first campsite visitor visiting that campsite, you actually have to invite that first villager. No, you cannot time travel. There is nothing you can do. You're gonna have to invite that villager to your island. But as I said in the beginning, if you do not like this villager or you might prefer someone else instead of them, just keep the interactions to a minimum. However, I think in Animal Crossing, you have to talk to a villager at least once in order to make them leave your island eventually. Okay, let's talk about your island fashion. So eventually at one point, you're gonna have Mabel visiting your island. She's like the cute blue little hedgehog, and you can buy all kind of fashion items from her: dresses, tops, jeans. Anyways, if you are a loyal customer to her, she will eventually want to build a shop on the island. Obviously, in that shop, you're gonna find way more outfits to buy, and you're gonna want to have Able Sisters on your island. In order for this to happen though, you're gonna have to have resident service building upgraded, museum build, so you have to donate those 15 creatures to Blathers. Or do you? I don't know. I think I've done this without it, but this is actually according to the internet. So you're gonna have Nooks build, and you have to, and I think this is probably the most important thing about this thing, you have to spend 5,000 bells with Mabel. Usually it might take like 2 or 3 times for her to appear as a random NPC visiting, like the daily NPC, to kind of reach these requirements. But this is at least according to the internet, things that you need in order to get Able Sisters. But I swear, I think I've had Able Sisters without the museum. So strange. Anyways, once you do have Able Sisters on your island, remember to chat with Sable, the other hedgehog working in this shop, because when you become friends with her, which usually takes about maybe a week of talking to her daily, you're gonna start unlocking some custom design fabrics that you can use around your island. And my best fishing trick is to close your eyes. Trust me, it's so much easier to fish in Animal Crossing by just listening to the sound. Like, I think that's almost like scientifically proven trick to be a successful fisher in this game. So close your eyes, trust me, just listen to that sound when the fish bites. Like, this is like the only way I've managed to do that Nook Mile achievement of like catching 100 fish in a row. How do you move trees and rocks on your island? So in order to do this, you're gonna have to either eat some fruit or eat some sort of meal in the game. In the beginning, it used to be only fruit, but you're gonna have this little icon in the corner of your screen that says 1 out of 10 or 5 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, and that basically means like you can move 1 tree or 5 or 10. Also, when you are in this mode, let's say this tree moving mode, if you hit a rock, you're gonna destroy the rock and it's gonna spawn in a new area the next day. So just keep that in mind, especially if you have a rock in a spot that you don't want to move. Don't go hammering on any rocks, yeah? But yeah, once you have eaten the fruit or the meal, just grab your shovel and go dig up some trees. So you are going to have an NPC visiting your island every day, and this is gonna rotate. It can be Sahara, the rug seller, it can be Kix, who is selling shoes and bags, it can be Mabel for your fashion needs, it can be Flick, it can be CJ. So every day you are guaranteed to have one NPC on your island. Once you finish the main storyline, however, on Saturdays it will always be KK and there is not gonna be another NPC on the island. Also on Sundays, I think it's only Daisy May. But Monday to Friday, you will always have one different NPC visiting your island. So remember to always find that NPC because you might wanna buy what they're selling or interact with them, especially for Flick and CJ. It's nice to know that they actually buy your fish and bugs for more than what Nooks offers you. So yeah, if you want to keep your bugs and fish to make like maximum profit, you can always like, yeah, have that like fish or bug corner on your island, wait for CJ or Flick to come around and use those days to sell your bugs and fish for some extra profit if you are patient. Okay, I should have probably mentioned this a little bit earlier, but let me just quickly go through what these mystery islands that you can fly to, what can you find on these islands? So you can obviously go and villager hunt when you have this open plot. That's like probably the main reason why I go to these mystery islands, but you can also find fossils on these islands. You can find DIY bottles, so if you want to maximize on those, you might want to consider using a Nook Mile ticket every day. If you want to find more recipes, you can find that sister fruit on these islands for that orchard money. And yeah, more resources, obviously. So especially in the beginning, like iron nuggets and stuff like that, it's quite a handy resource to have or to use or utilize, especially if you're struggling on the resources. You can find different flowers on these islands, so something else that is not your native flower. And you have a slight chance of finding a rare island. So for example, during summer, you can find a so-called shark island that will spawn only sharks. But I'm not gonna go into this too much. I think there's only like maybe Tarantula Island. Ooh, there's actually a Money Rock Island. That's actually a really good island to find for some easy beginning money, actually. Anyways. Okay, my mouth is like getting numb talking so much, But the last thing that I want to talk about is villager friendships. I'm not gonna go into too much detail here, but basically, at least for me, the two best items to gift to your villagers are either those duplicate fossils. No, you cannot accidentally give your villagers a fossil that you haven't given to the museum. Literally, the villager will have like a dialogue that says like, oh, you haven't donated this, I cannot take it. So don't worry about that. You can only gift them duplicate fossils. However, if you do want to keep your fossils, for example, just to sell them or display them as a decoration, one item that gives you a pretty good friendship bonus when you gift them to your villagers is iron wall lamps. And this is something that I've used when I think I didn't have a museum over on one of my islands, so I used iron wall lamps instead to maximize on those like friendship points that you get when you gift items to your villagers. If you're wondering why iron wall lamps, the good thing about this item is that your villagers will not display these in their homes. But fossils and iron wall lamps are pretty much the best way to go. Obviously you can gift your villagers whatever you want, but just know that if you gift them any furniture or clothing items, the villager is gonna be wearing them and displaying them in their house. So if you don't want to kind of like have this random junk in your villagers' houses, or you don't want them to wear random outfits, just keep that in mind. Also, you get a little bit of a boost if these items are wrapped before you gift them to your villagers, so that's also a nice to know thing, especially if you want some extra boost in order to befriend your villagers. And yeah, in general, as I already said, if there is a villager that you don't really want to have around your island, just avoid gifting them stuff. But if there is your favorite villagers or villagers that you want to make your besties, make sure that you gift them stuff every day and chat with them every day, because it will boost the friendship, and eventually you're gonna be getting a nickname from your villager, which is really cute. You have a very slight chance at one point to get their photo and all that cute stuff. So yeah, I guess that's kind of nice to know. And the easiest way to boost this friendship is with those fossils, especially when you start getting a lot of duplicates. It's kind of a nice way to get rid of them if you don't want to sell them for bells. Did I also mention that you can find up to 6 fossils per day on your island? So make sure that you find all of them to maximize on fossils. And don't forget about mystery islands, because you might find some extra fossils there as well, if you want to complete your fossil collection as soon as possible. Okay, oh my goodness, if you made it all the way through this video, thank you so very much. I'm so sorry this turned out to be like such a lengthy explanation to everything, but you know, with this video you should be totally covered. You should know everything there needs to be known about Animal Crossing New Horizons. However, if I did miss out on anything, let me know in the comments below. What are your best beginner tips for maybe new players, or just in general, your best tips? Also, I kind of want to make a side note of that I actually recorded this video like a year ago, but I never ended up releasing it. So in case you're wondering why it sounds a bit different, that's probably why. But yeah, I'm bringing you these tips this year. If you did find this video helpful, make sure that you give it a thumbs up. Maybe consider subscribing to the channel if you feel like doing so. If you made it all the way through, let's leave some coffee cup emojis in the comments down below. And I guess that's it for now. Thanks again for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye, guys.